Mortgage interest rates have been at record lows for a while now, and even though experts feel that rates will remain low for the time being, there is no way to predict the future. So if you want to own a house, buying now or in the near future is an excellent way to get a low rate and save money. But the process of buying a home is more complex, and it's also slower than renting like a house or an apartment, and a lot of first-time home buyers don't really know what to expect. So in today's video, I will walk you through the steps of buying a house and also provide a few tips that can help make for a smoother process. But before we get into the video, if you are new here, welcome. My name is V. I am a personal finance writer, and I create videos on different money topics, mainly how you can save money, but we also talk a little bit about credit and debt and some other general finance topics. So if you like videos like this and you want to be a part of the conversation, do consider subscribing below. But in the meantime, let's get into the tips. When buying a house, before you even fill out a loan application, the first thing you want to do is check your credit report and your credit score. And this is important because your credit history, it's going to basically let you know whether or not you are even qualified to get a home at this point in time. Now, one good thing about buying a house is that you do not need perfect credit. In fact, you don't even need good credit. There are a lot of mortgage programs that will approve you even if your credit score is as low as 620 to 580. However, in order to get a loan with a low score, your credit history for the past 12 months must be good. In other words, lenders will look at your credit report and they do not want to see any late payments, any new collections, or any judgments within that 12-month period. Now, I will say, waiting until you have a higher credit score will definitely work in your favor, because a higher score, it just makes it easier to qualify, and it also helps you get a better interest rate. And the reason why it's so important to check your credit before applying is because many people assume that they have good credit. They assume that their credit score is within a certain range, and it's not until they actually pull their reports that they realize that they have some work to do. And as far as your credit score, you can order this from myfico.com. However, before you do that, I also recommend checking with your credit card company, because sometimes they will give customers their updated credit score for free every month as a customer perk. Now, for your credit report, you can contact all of the bureaus individually and request a copy. However, you could also go to annualcreditreport.com, and in my opinion, this is probably the easiest place to get all three of your reports in one place. And as a bonus, every consumer, you are entitled to one free credit report annually from all three of the bureaus. It's also important that you start saving your money, because most mortgage programs today will require a down payment. Now, the good news is that you do not need a 20% down payment. Many programs will allow you to get a loan even if you have as little as 3% to 5% down. But a down payment is not the only expense when buying a house, if only it was that easy. The truth is, you need cash, and a lot of it. And even though we know buying a home is expensive, it's one of those things where you really don't realize just how expensive it can be until you're in the situation. And the money, it starts from the very beginning. When you find a house and you submit your purchase offer, you also need to submit an earnest money check with that offer. And it's pretty much good faith money to let the seller know that you're serious. And earnest money deposits, these can range from $500 to $1,000 or more. Not only that, you have to pay for the appraisal, and there's also closing costs, which can be another 2 to 5% of the loan amount. Now, as far as how much to save for a house, it's very hard to predict, because what you need for your closing costs and your down payment, it's really based on the sale price or the loan amount. But what you can do to get like a ballpark figure of what you need to aim for is use a mortgage calculator that will estimate affordability. Now, these calculators are by no means an exact science. However, I did play around with a few of them, and they do a pretty good job with estimating how much you're likely to qualify for. And basically, to get started, all you need to do is input your income, and you also need to provide some information about your monthly debt payments. And just to illustrate, if the calculator estimates that you can afford a mortgage of $250,000, you might want to start saving $12,000 for your down payment, which is about 5%, and maybe another $5,000 $100,000 for your closing costs. It's also important that you get your documents ready before contacting a mortgage lender. And buying a house, it involves a lot of paperwork. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever touched so much paperwork in my life. And some of the paperwork is very obvious, stuff that you know you'll need to provide, but a lot of it isn't as obvious. And you want to have your documentation ready early because it can really help speed the process, because your lender could call out the blue and be like, hey, I need this, I need that. And if it takes you a week or longer to get this information to your lender, it can really slow the process and delay closing. Some of the documents you will need include tax returns from the previous 2 years, paycheck stubs from the past 30 days, a profit and loss statement if you are self-employed, financial statements such as bank account statements and retirement account statements, a rental reference, copies of court orders if you're receiving alimony or child support, and a copy of your driver's license and social security card. Now, once you've checked your credit, you saved your money, and you have your documentation, the fun begins, and now you are ready to get pre-approved for a mortgage loan. A pre-approval will benefit you in so many ways, and it's basically the process of applying for a loan and actually sending your lender all your supporting documentation, which includes your tax returns, your bank statements, your W-2s, your paycheck stubs. Once the lender has all of this information, they will then determine how much you can afford to spend on a house. And the reason why it's good to have a pre-approval is because too often people will house hunt before talking with a lender. And even though you can do that, that is your choice, there is a danger in doing things that way. The danger, which you might have already guessed, is the risk of falling in love with a house that you cannot afford. Because if you never talk to a lender, you really have no idea how much the bank is going to lend you. And you may even overestimate how much you're able to afford. So you could be out here looking at houses that cost $400,000, yet once a lender reviews all your information, they may conclude that you can only afford a house worth $250,000. A pre-approval, it really removes all the guesswork. You know upfront how much you can spend, and you only look for houses in your price point. But that is not the only reason. Another reason is that sellers, they will take you more serious if you include a pre-approval letter in your offer. Sellers are often motivated and they are ready to move on with their life. And if they receive multiple offers and two offers are very similar, the only difference is that one buyer is pre-approved and the other buyer isn't, I mean, you pretty much don't have to guess which offer they are likely to choose. So getting pre-approved is really for your benefit, and it's a way to stay a step ahead of the competition. It's also important that you work with a realtor when buying a house. And this is something that's also very important because, you know, if you are a first-time home buyer especially, there's a lot about the buying process that you may be unfamiliar with. And, you know, you really want to have a professional on your side, because even if the seller has a realtor and this person is open to, you know, answering some of your questions, at the end of the day, they are there to serve the seller, not you. And the advice that they give, it's pretty much going to be in the interest of the seller who is their client. So you really want to have your own representation. And as far as finding a good realtor, I really recommend starting with maybe friends and family. You know, if they've sold a house or if they bought a house recently, you know, they may have had a good experience with their realtor. And if so, you may have a similar experience. Now, once you've found a house, the next step is to submit your offer. And when submitting your offer, it's important to remember that the goal is to actually win the bid and get the house. And the reason why I say that is because you really don't want to do anything that's going to offend the seller. Because if you come in and you give a super low ball offer, the seller may not even entertain your offer. They may not even offer a counter. They may just move on to the next bidder. I know in the past I've spoken to some first-time home buyers who act as if they know more than their realtor, and really listen to the professional. You know, your realtor, they hopefully know the area very well. They know what homes have sold for. And at the end of the day, they want to sell the house as much as you do. So when it comes to choosing an asking price, I really recommend that you listen to the advice of your realtor, because from my experience, they are usually spot on. One thing I do recommend is that when you write up your offer, you should make it subject to a satisfactory home inspection. Now, that is a pretty common statement, and chances are the seller is expecting this. Getting a home inspection is so important because it can really uncover hidden problems with the house. That way you know exactly what you're getting into, and if a house has some major things or even some minor things, you can ask that the seller take care of these issues before closing. And if the house does have problems and the seller doesn't want to fix them, including that statement in your purchase agreement gives you an out where you can walk away from the deal. Now, once the seller accepts your offer and everyone agrees to a sale price, your lender will then provide you with a loan estimate. This is a document that will estimate your mortgage terms and costs. This way you know exactly what you're getting into before you proceed with the mortgage. Now, these documents are fairly new. I think they're only like 4 years old, and basically when you read through your loan estimate, it's going to include information such as the purchase price for the house, your interest rate, your type of mortgage, and it's also going to include information such as how much money you need to close. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this document is 3 pages long, and basically you want to just really comb through the document, look at every single line, make sure you agree to the mortgage terms, and if you do, you will then contact your mortgage lender and let them know your intent to proceed. And at this point, your lender will start preparing your loan file, they'll schedule your appraisal, and you're on track to closing. Now, I have to say, this document only provides an estimation of your actual loan terms. So 3 days before closing, you're going to get another form which will have your actual terms. And when you get this form, basically what you want to do is compare the two. And if you have any questions, definitely contact your lender. Now, once you have a mortgage and you found a house, it can take on average about 30 to 45 days to close. And during this time, it is so important that you do not mess up your pre-approval. It's important to understand that a pre-approval does not guarantee closing. This is actually a conditional approval, meaning that as long as your situation doesn't change, you are likely to close on the mortgage. Lenders will check your credit and they will re-verify your income about a few days before closing. And if your income changes, if your employment status changes, or if you take on any new debt, all of these factors could jeopardize your mortgage. So it is so important that everything remains the same. Now, of course, life happens. So you may lose your job by no fault of your own during the mortgage process, or your car may die and you have to buy a new car. And in situations like that, it is always best to speak with your lender as soon as possible and keep them in the loop. Now, if you lose your job and you're able to find one fairly quickly and your income is the same or more, you know, that might be enough to keep closing on schedule. However, keep in mind that before you're able to close, your lender will probably want to see about 30 days of paychecks. And if you must finance a car, let your lender run the numbers first to see whether a new monthly payment would jeopardize your loan. Buying a house is a huge accomplishment, and for a lot of people it is the ultimate goal, but it can also be a complicated process. And if you don't know what to expect, there is a chance that you could do something on the front end or the back end that could jeopardize your loan. But knowing what to do and what not to do can result in a much smoother process and keep your loan on track. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, do consider subscribing. This channel, we talk a lot about money, different ways that you can save money, but also how you can improve your entire financial outlooks. I post every weekend and sometimes during the week. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in a few days.